In the past few weeks, we've seen that India is likely going through a slowdown, at least a consumer slowdown. We've also seen that private investment has not taken off as much as the authorities would like to have seen it. Industry watchers ascribe this to a lack of adequate demand. That's on the domestic front. Now, with Donald Trump slated to enter the White House coming January, how much worse can things get for India, especially on the export front? Hello and welcome back to Business Matters at the Hindu with me, K. Bharat Kumar. Donald Trump, the president-elect of the United States, is known to aggressively push to protect the interests of US companies. It's likely he'll continue to do that when he takes over from Joe Biden in the coming months. And if and when he does that, the prospects for Indian companies worldwide could be impacted. Having earlier called India the king of tariffs and a major trade abuser, Trump, in one of his campaign rallies this year, had vowed reciprocal tariffs when he becomes president again. His actions will be mainly directed at China, but will certainly also affect India. He has referred to India in the same breath as China, Brazil, and Mexico, which countries he believes have high import tariffs. But he has also pointed out that the highest tariffs are imposed by India on its imports. What Indian industrialists are hoping for is that Trump would be far more tempered in executing the promises than he sounded at the time that he made them. For if, for example, Trump brings in a lot of trade barriers on the trade between US and China, it could make goods for US citizens locally more costly. That could drive up inflation in the US, and that would tempt the Federal Reserve to hold rates higher for longer. In a report on Tuesday, DBS Research warned that if America's curbs impact China's exports to the US, the excess stock will likely be redirected to the rest of the world at lower prices, including to India, impacting local producers. One American businessman stands to benefit far more than any other in his country if and when Donald Trump drives a hard bargain on trade with other countries, especially with India: Elon Musk. Musk has been seen by observers as growing more and more influential within Trump's inner circle over the past few months. Musk has been by far the largest contributor to Trump's campaigns. His donations therein have totaled around about 118 million US dollars. Observers point out that Musk's companies, namely Tesla and Starlink's ease of entry into India, have become far more improved now after facing several hiccups over the past few years. The Indian government has made it easier for Starlink by allowing operators or providers who offer satellite-based internet access to use spectrum without having to go through a costly auction process. Musk welcomed this move, but India's Reliance Jio and Bharti Airtel have opposed it, indicating that Starlink targets the same internet user base as a market as they themselves do, and so allowing spectrum use without auctions was unfair. Telecom firms had to go through an auction process before they obtained airwaves or spectrum for their operations. In the recent past, Musk-owned electric vehicle maker Tesla had sought concessions from Indian authorities, but India has not been interested because then if it dished out some of these concessions to Musk-owned Tesla, then they would have to do the same to other EV makers, and India wasn't keen on that. Musk, in fact, cancelled a high-profile visit after promising to come, and then he backed off in May 2024, indicating that he had other heavy obligations. With Trump backing Musk now, the prospects for Tesla India became that much brighter. The other thing to watch out for is the Trump win impact on the rupee. The last time that Trump was in power, namely between 2016 and 2020, the world witnessed a strengthening of the dollar. That means that automatically most other currencies weakened against it. Likewise, if the Indian rupee weakens going forward, it would mean that all our import bills, especially our crude oil bills, will become costlier. Next, let's take a look at what Trump in power means for US's immigration policies. Trump's stance on immigration is well known. His last tenure saw some restrictions come in, even for the non-immigrant work visa H-1B. This resulted in greater wait times of several months for H-1B interviews at Indian consulates, as well as resulted in higher rejection rates. If Trump tightens visa rules even further, it could mean that Indian IT workers, technology workers aspiring to go to the US on an H-1B visa may not be able to or may face delays and so on. This would mean that Indian IT companies would have to find local talent in the US to be able to populate those vacancies and serve US clients. If H-1B rules are further tightened, Indian IT services firms would likely be hit the most among industries that service US clients from other parts of the world. To be sure, the likes of Amazon, Google, Meta, Microsoft, and Apple will also be impacted within the US, considering they are among the largest employers of H-1B holders. But there is a flip side to this, industry watchers point out. What is it? The H-1B visa came into existence because the US wanted workers from other countries to come and fill positions, vacant positions that required STEM skills, skills in science, technology, engineering, and management. Now, if the H-1B visa gets more difficult to obtain, then clients would still want their work done, whether it's done locally or elsewhere. It's a matter of choice. And if they can't find enough people with STEM skills to fill those vacant positions, they may not mind shipping those jobs abroad. So, observers point out that there is a flip side. If Trump goes really hard on the H-1B front, then jobs could actually get shipped offshore to countries like India. They also point out that if an H-1B is easy to get and a person comes in on H-1B, then there is a positive ripple effect on the economy. There are more other kinds of jobs created with every new additional H-1B job that's created. There are also fears among immigrants that Trump is ready to sign into law a decision that will prevent grant of US citizenship to children of parents who are not US citizens, even if the children were born in the US. Children of parents who are of Indian origin are likely the ones facing the greatest anxiety on this front. Now, other than information technology, which other sectors in India could be impacted by Trump's policies? A report by the Press Trust of India last week quoted Agneshwar Sen, who is a partner for tax and economic policy, EY India, as saying that the US may use high tariffs strategically to onshore manufacturing and change current supply chains. India could face higher tariffs on exports like textiles, chemicals, pharma, and auto or engineering products, it quoted Mr. Sen as saying. He points out that India will now have to do one of two things. Either it will have to find an alternative market, alternative to the US, which is difficult at short notice, or we'll have to come up with our own trade tariffs on US exports to India. But he also points out that there is another possibility. India should think about readying a deal that could interest the US and not only protects our own Indian interests, but also create new ones. That's all we have for you now on this topic. The run up to the actual presidential inauguration in the US in January will be an interesting period. So, watch the space for more. That brings us to a section where we have the usual nugget of information for you every week. Did you know that thousands of years before Europeans began crossing the vast Atlantic by ship and settling en masse, the first immigrants arrived in North America from Asia? They were Native American ancestors who crossed a narrow spit of land connecting Asia to North America at least 20,000 years ago during the last ice age. In the quiz section last week, we asked you, when was Nestle founded? And the answer is, Henri Nestle developed a breakthrough baby food in 1867, and in 1905, his company merged with a company called Anglo-Swiss to form what we know as the Nestle Group. And here's a quiz question for this week. The US, like other countries, has had a history of imposing or increasing trade tariffs. When did the US increase tariffs the most, or the sharpest increase seen? Before you go away, do not forget to like, share, and subscribe if you like this episode. Till we meet again, have a lovely time ahead.